Hey guys, Scotty here, Hustle and Grind Pod. Thank you so much for checking things out. This week's episode, you're not going to want to miss it. We got Robert Lewkowitz and Shari Hall at Lewkowitz Financial. We're going to talk about trust, culture, checking the ego at the door. We learn about mission services, the coldest night of the year. You're going to want to check it out. Don't miss it. We'll see you in a sec.
Robert Lewkowitz and Shari Hall, thanks for joining us today on the podcast from Lewkowitz Financial. Super excited to have you guys here. I've had the pleasure of working with both of you over the years and getting to know your business, getting to know you guys. Robert, actually, someone that, as I have gotten to know, a little bit of a mentor in a way, whether you like it or not. But, myself as a business owner and growing my business and having watched you and how you manage your business and grow your business, really, it's really admirable, and there's a lot of takeaways that I get every time we meet. So I've never really said that to you, but there you go. Yeah, yeah. So So and then Shari as well. Just the culture you guys build within Lewkowitz Financial. We'll talk a lot about that today. So, but yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules and coming on to our podcast. We're excited to have you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to start with, definitely want to start with Robert, how you built the business, Lewkowitz Financial. But I also want to talk about community connections, because I know that's a big part of your business and how you're involved in a lot of community aspects in London. Can you talk about the importance of that with business and why it's so important to connect with community?
Well, we're part of the community, and it's our way of giving back, encouraging clients as well. And it's funny because we work in a very capitalistic business, and I am an unapologetic capitalist.
There you go.
But capitalism and charity is sort of the ideal solution to helping those that are less fortunate, rather than having the government choose where our money goes, because they're maybe not the most efficient stewards of capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So now, can you maybe just outline to our audience, some of the community organizations in London that you are involved with? Because I've seen it firsthand, but I'd love our audience to kind of learn a little bit more. Well,
we've supported some charities that work internationally and clean water projects in Africa, but probably our biggest local one is Mission Services. Our office is at the corner of Adelaide and Dufferin, and so we're close to it. We have a lot of the homeless people that actually take up shelter on our porch.
Wow!
And so we want to do our part to help. And the work that they do is fantastic. So we sponsor, for I think 7 years now, the coldest night of the year walk in February. And the route comes right by our office, so we provide a warming station so people can have a hot chocolate or a coffee on the route.
Nice.
And they do great work.
So can you tell us about that event itself? It sounds kind of neat. So a bunch of people kind of get together, raise some money, and then they do the thing and they freeze their butt off for the night. Is that the thing?
It's meant to have a very brief glimpse into what it's like to be on the street in the cold. I mean, it's a pretty cushy way to do it. Mm-hmm. Where no one's sleeping overnight without clothes on their back. But it's a walk on a cold day in February just to raise awareness for the homeless and what it's like. And sometimes the mission services will have a different purpose for each year.
Okay.
Whether it's a Quentin Warner House or a Roth Home, they raise the funds to employ the people that serve the homeless and provide the shelters and the counseling. And we need more of that in the city. We've closed the psych hospitals, and now all the pressure is on the police and the hospitals that aren't really equipped to solve that problem.
No, the resources are thin, I think, in that respect, and it's an unfortunate reality that we're in.
It's a nice thing too, because what's raised locally stays locally. Mm-hmm. So it's a big organization, and they do the walk in many different cities, but what London raises
stays home.
Stays in London.
That's important, right? Yeah. Because sometimes you do give, or you're not always sure where the funds are going, and I think just through that organization, through Mission Services, or the coldest night of the year, definitely they all stay in the community, so that's really important, definitely. And I think that, knowing you guys and understanding your business, getting to know your business, I mean, that culture of togetherness, of giving, really exists within your business and even within your client base. You guys recently had a client appreciation event, and it was pretty amazing to see, just how much of a connection you have with your clients, like on a personal level. And I don't know, I try and do that with my business and my clients, but I don't know that that's really an intentional thing. A lot of businesses and a lot of business owners do, but clearly you guys do.
Well, our business is all about helping clients achieve their goals. So the more we can understand them, their families, their children, the more we can connect with their goals and make their goals our goals. So there was a saying, and I think I said this to you earlier, that cliches exist for a reason. But there's a saying I heard many, many years ago that you can get whatever you want out of life if you help enough other people get what they want out of life.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Sure, we set our goals, but ultimately we just focus on client goals, and if we can help them reach theirs, we'll reach ours.
Yeah.
So I think, and what I like about, obviously there's a benefit of helping the community at need. Like, that's great, makes you feel good. You're doing something, you're contributing positively to your community. But it also helps you find business, right? Like, and this is, I think, maybe where you were going with, Ryan, is as an average business owner, you're stuck in the grind. You're trying, got payroll coming out, maybe something like COVID hits, and it throws you for a bit of a loop, and you've not been active in the community. People may not know who you are, and you're so reliant on just grinding it out. Whereas when you so for example, and what it makes me think of is I was in the financial world once upon a time. I had my insurance license, my mutual fund license. I worked with Investors Group. And one of the first things that they did when you got hired there was they give you a day a month to give back, right? So they send you out. They want to help you find an organization. So there's partially because they want you to grow a book of business, but you got to get out there. Yeah. But then they also had opportunities for us to present our case for supporting certain organizations, and they would give us like grant money to donate towards some of these causes, right? So it was, for me, I didn't really know what group I should get involved with or how or where I should help. My wife's in the optical business, so I would listen to her about how many people neglected their vision health. And so I connected with CNIB at the time. And of course, with a lot of these groups, you get on a committee of sorts, and then they ask you, hey, do you think you could do this? And of course you say yes. And then, hey, do you think you could do this? And of course you say yes. And next thing you know, you're almost working full time with these nonprofits. And they actually offered me a job to do what I was doing as a volunteer. And that's when I left Investors Group, oddly enough. I was like, wait, I'm going to do all this stuff that I'm already doing, but you're going to pay me to do it? That sounds incredible. So, and then, I guess the long and the short of it is that if you haven't been out there and you haven't gotten involved in the community, get out there, right? Talked about Brett. And
Brett Lucier, who started Fight to End Homelessness, the boxing event. Yeah, we had him as a guest, and same thing, right? He's just like, look, not everyone has money to invest in an organization, but give your time at least, right? And that was
find new people and contribute, and good things will likely follow.
Yeah.
It's about connecting, right? And connecting on any level. You don't know who knows who. So it can be as simple, somebody that doesn't have money, but they know somebody that needs that. Now they can make that connection. So it's all those connections are what, makes us feel so good and fills our bucket at the end of the day.
Yeah, like that.
And it's nice we can have a business that is a constant give.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it has to
Yeah.
be genuine. You,
Yeah.
you know, you don't
Yeah.
you don't join a group just because of the connections you might make. It has to be a legitimate interest you have, so you
passion.
connect with like-minded people.
Absolutely.
So I read
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I read something that you said before, and it's maybe a little different than some of the people in the financial advisory world. And you said there's a personality minimum,
Oh, yeah.
not a dollar minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you help me understand what you mean by that?
Yeah, actually, I do say that a lot. We've built a business that I think it comes across really quickly to people that we love what we do, and I've run the business to make sure we continue to love what we do. Life's too short to deal with jerks, regardless of how big an account it may be. I want to work with people that we can help, and if they're coachable, then we're glad to work with them. My wife was a coach in basketball. And she often said that it wasn't always necessarily the most talented athlete; it was the most coachable athlete that she could help the most. And it's similar with clients. So I want to look forward to coming to work every day, and I look at my schedule, and if I ever have to say, "Oh, do I have to spend another hour of my life with this person?" then it's
That's
not
a red
good fit.
flag.
Yeah.
But it's I love that because even myself and we might find a lot of new business owners being like, I'll deal with it. Crappy client, I'll just deal with it, right? But you don't need to, right? And I'm guilty as charged in my own business.
Depending
right?
on, so when was that a philosophy from day one?
So you put up with us. Okay.
Yeah, gladly, but earlier.
No, but is that a philosophy from day one, or is it something like because again
evolved.
at the beginning when you're starting out, I can remember like I was really hungry.
Yeah.
Like genuinely at Investors Group, it was a grind. From the job I had prior, my income was significantly less for a couple of years, like in a dramatic way.
You got to like build your
Right?
business.
So this personality minimum, in theory, sounds great if your business is thriving and you have an opportunity to say, you know what, this guy's got a big book, but he's a jerk, and I don't want to work with him. But back in my early days at IG, I'm going for that book.
Yeah.
Right. I gotta pay the mortgage. I gotta put food on the table. Right. So was it a philosophy from day one? Did it kind of eventually kind of just, appear to you as you kind of started? Like, and for you, Shari, like where does that sit with you?
I'll let you answer first.
Sure. Yeah, it did evolve. I mean, to use your example, if you don't necessarily know if someone's a jerk right away.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had cases where someone comes in and a big client, and they're complaining about their previous advisor, and then as you dig a little bit more, they complain about the advisor they had before that, and you're thinking, wow, like why wouldn't someone be bending over backwards to keep this client happy? He's a great client, and then you realize, it wasn't the advisor that was the problem.
Right. Yes.
So you can ferret out the
there were those red flags there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love this topic because there are a lot of red flags that typically as a new business owner, you know in your gut, and this may not be a right fit for me, but I'm going to ignore that. Go forward with the client relationship or onboarding them as a client. And then, months or even weeks down the road, you're like, it just ends up as a disaster. And you should have paid attention. But how do you do that as a hungry new business owner, like you're saying,
You need
Scott?
the business, right? Because you've got
But there's
bills to
nothing
pay.
saying you have to hang on to that client.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do what you need to do in the moment, and you're going to trade off your stress
Yeah.
for pleasing this client and trying to hang on to them to make sure your ends are meeting.
Yeah.
But in time as you grow, you've got that capability of working, and they might realize it as well that this isn't a good fit. And
Yeah.
so things can naturally take a look. But when you are in that position that you can be a little more selective and you're conscious, then you definitely want to pick and choose who you're working with, because it makes that work-life balance so great. So you may not have that option when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
No, and I imagine over the years, because you've been doing it for a minute, I feel like even initially, because you're kind of interviewing each other, right? You're trying to earn the business. They're trying to identify whether or not you're going to be a right fit. And of course, at this stage of your career, absolutely, you're trying to identify, are they the right fit? If they're not coachable and it's going to, take up 80% of my time to deal with 20% of these people who are a pain in my ass.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're probably spending some time, a term I use called road mapping, what the relationship will look like, to let them know that, hey, by the way, if you're a dick, this isn't going to work out, without maybe saying it in so many words. But you're right. But
you have to be clear.
Yeah.
Are you kind of mapping out that process to say, look, like, here's how we work, here's why we do it, and then ultimately, if you're feeling that they're not going to be drinking the Kool-Aid, then you make that tough decision to say, well, we're not the right fit.
It's become a lot easier because now the vast majority, probably close to 100% of our new clients have been referrals. Like, we get referrals on a regular basis. And good people know good people. So, and that makes it fun. And of course, it certainly helps to transition the trust. If your best friend trusts the advisor, that's going to relay onto you.
Right.
So that definitely makes it a lot more fun and easier. But yeah, I'll lay out sort of the expectations that when we're working with someone, and I'm polite about it, but my job is to challenge people. Like, if all I am is a yes man and they say this is what they want, and I go, okay, well, I'm an order taker. They don't really need me.
Fair.
I love that. Yeah. Can you, so Robert, can you actually take us back into, how you started the business and where you came from? I know that in the financial world, I don't know a lot about it, but my understanding is, in the financial world, you can work for a big finance company, and have a great career working for a financial company, or you can go out on your own and start your own financial business. Like what was your journey with starting your business, and why? Like, what made you decide that you wanted to do this on your own?
Yeah, good question. Well, I started with a major Canadian bank, and so initially I was trained to be in branch administration, all the positions in a branch, to ultimately become a branch manager. And, here I was, wet behind the ears, straight out of university, working with people who'd been in the branch for 20, 30 years. Yeah. And when a customer would ask about the mutual funds that the bank had to offer, they'd say, go talk to Rob. They didn't want to deal with it. And so I pretty quickly realized that, I wanted to be self-employed, and that's exactly what I wanted to do, help people with their investments. So I left the bank, I did the Canadian Securities course, and I started with Investors Group myself.
No way.
Yeah.
Small world.
So they were known for their training, not that it was a lot, but it was more than anyone else offered at the time.
It was, I think, thorough. Like, you're on, at least when I was there, I was, again, a class for a couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that was a little different back in my day. But things were very different. Most people didn't know what a mutual fund was.
Fair.
So you could explain the virtues of a mutual fund and segue into their products, because you could only offer their products. And so when I would ask, a typical meeting would start off with, have you ever heard of a mutual fund? Which is almost a ridiculous question these days. Yeah. But most people would say no. But occasionally someone would say, oh, yeah, I've been investing with Trimark or Templeton for years. Huh. And my inside voice was going, oh, darn, I can't provide you with that.
Oh, right.
And that's when I realized I had to leave to be independent, have access to more product, deal with more sophisticated clients. And so I changed dealers, and I did a couple of dealer changes. I partnered with Equity Associates, which is designed to serve established advisors. And then, Lewkowitz Financial. I incorporated before that, incorporated back in 1996 for Lewkowitz Financial. Mm-hmm. But Equity Associates is independent financial planning firm as well. But either way, whether you're with Investors Group or any dealer, no one's really helping you build your business. Yeah. As you know,
you're on your own in that sense. And you got a good director or somebody who sees potential in you, right? And then there's folks who retire and pass portions of their book on to others, of course, as well. But it's almost like you got to latch on and find that mentor to kind of pull you along. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because one of the most difficult things for me, and it's really the reason I left the biz, was I'd be sitting across the table from somebody who's a lot wealthier than I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who on earth am I to be providing financial advice as I'm wet behind the ears here. Mm. Yeah. Right. I was just riddled with guilt. Like, I was like, I just hit a wall. I could not get past the fact that I understood, I was educated. I took all my courses. I passed them with, flying colors. And, but man, like it just, I was, I was not rolling in dough by any stretch at all. And here I am trying to provide financial advice to somebody who's clearly got a leg up on me. So that's when the CNIB deal kind of presented itself. I was like, I gotta make a move here.
Yeah. Well, I do remember my first large client, or what I considered large at the time. I was 25 years old. They were in their, at the time, probably 60s. And I realized, okay, it wasn't my age, it wasn't my experience, it was what I knew that could help people. So experience, the confidence comes with time and experience for sure.
Well, and looking back, I could have given myself a bit of a break, right? Because I was in it for the right reasons. I genuinely got into it because I wanted to help people navigate their path, right? But at the time, I could not see past that, and of course, that's why I moved on. Yeah. Quick question back to, you mentioned back when you started with one of those major banks, and some of the veterans, they didn't want to deal with the mutual funds, and they just kept sending people your way. Like, why do you think they weren't interested?
They do have their advisors now, and it's developed, and they refer clients up to the brokerage firm. But at the branch level, they weren't trained in that field.
I see.
They were salaried employees that wanted us to do a simple job.
Right.
The branch manager had been there. Now, this was 1987. The branch manager had been with the bank for 30 years and was making $60,000 a year.
Wow.
And like I said, there was so much more we could do for clients, and I just couldn't do it in that environment.
I imagine a branch manager who's got 30 years under the belt now at a major bank's salary looks a little different than $60K.
No, it was a while ago. But still, it wasn't even impressive then.
No, I guess not. Yeah.
It's there's so much here that I'm kind of wanting to unpack. I think that I heard you say that you were almost pigeonholed, or you just really couldn't do more working for a big corporation. So that's what allowed you to kind of make the decision, go out on your own. We've heard that a few times, with guests, that that decision to go out on your own is a result of just like, okay, I'm working for this big institution. There's only so much more I can do. What's next, right? Either I work with this institution for the next, 10, 20 years of my life, or sky's the limit if I go out on my own. I mean, that can be terrifying for a lot of people though as well, right? And do you need that entrepreneurial spirit? That is that part of our MO, part of our personality, or are you almost forced to do that at some point in your career?
I think it comes back to capitalism. You see a need, you fill a need.
Right.
It's not getting filled. Robert saw the need that people weren't getting the advice they needed. It was so limited that it was easy to say, look, no, I want to offer you whatever's out there so that I know I'm offering you what's in your best interest, not the retail bank's best interest, because this is their gamut of information that they can provide you.
Yeah.
So how did you find your way into this world?
Very similarly, I started at a retail bank as well, and not quite at the same time frame. But what I was experiencing was just how much the retail bank was putting themselves first. And I was witnessing at the expense of the client. And I kind of went, my integrity doesn't let me deal with that. So that's when I stepped away. And I thought, okay, well, I have this wealth of knowledge now. How do I make that work for them? And so that's when I got into insurance and investing, and I just wanted to be there to be able to provide them that whole gamut, and not say, okay, well, I can offer you from the 3 mutual funds that my retail advisor offers. This one will work for you. Well, now we've got multitudes of investments that we can work, and everybody's situation is different. So you want to make sure that you can narrow in and you can stand behind what you're what you're recommending.
So having access, like call it inventory, if you will, more inventory allows you to better match the product with the client.
Building out a portfolio for somebody, I would say, having more options because everybody's unique.
Sure.
Yeah.
Knowing how to build that portfolio.
And how.
Matching the risk return parameters that are suitable.
Time
for a client.
horizon. When are they going to
Got
need to
it.
get their hands on this money?
Yeah.
Is this long term? Is it short term? What are you banking for here?
Right. And knowing the managers, the portfolio managers, how they manage money. It's easy to pull up big numbers and say, oh, look how great this fund performed, but why and who's behind it.
So you guys know the managers.
It's a huge part of.
Oh man. So yeah, what an
Interesting.
advantage. You've got. It's not just numbers in a the book, so to speak, right?
Oh no. Well, just recently, a client was in a fund that did extremely well for quite a while, but the manager that accomplished those numbers left 2 years ago, and things have already changed drastically. So,
And you had been able to maybe pivot and make some
yeah.
adjustments long before you learned the hard way that this fund isn't being managed the way it was prior, and the returns have been at jeopardy since.
Yeah, the example I use, if you have a favorite restaurant you've been going to for years, and then the chef goes to the restaurant across the street,
Right.
you have to go across the street. Right?
Man,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
Wow.
analogy, actually. I like that.
I don't know. At least that's a new perspective that I never even really thought about, and how much of an advantage that truly is.
Yeah, and part of our job as well is to ferret out, is it really a team approach behind a mutual fund or the all-star syndrome? And fund companies as well, they have to deal with that, because if they do have a rock star manager, as I call it, it also makes them vulnerable if that manager leaves.
Yeah. Good point.
So something, because then suddenly when the manager leaves, oh no, it was a team approach. No one individual matters that much, and that's where we have to figure out. Is that the case?
Yeah, like
or
if
not?
the Oilers, if McDavid comes to the Leafs, wishful thinking.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
It'll never happen. But if he's no longer on the Oilers, that team looks dramatically different. They still got some great players on that squad.
Exactly.
But your roster is the picture looks quite
that
quite
bench strength.
Yeah.
So I love that we're here because with team, because not the one thing, but there's several things. But one of the things that I've got to witness with your company, Lewkowitz Financial, is this team approach and this very positive culture that you guys have built, right? Because when we do have some marketing meetings and I come in, it's almost service. You have this service leadership attitude where, or this philosophy where any of your team can not necessarily challenge you, but can give their 2 cents. I know we were having a meeting about the website, and everyone's kind of chiming in and that sort of thing. And I loved it because as leaders of a business, I think sometimes people expect you to have all the answers, right? And if you don't allow yourself to welcome those that feedback from your team, I think there's a lot of blind spots that can happen. So is that something intentionally that you guys have built within the culture of Lewkowitz Financial?
Yeah, I guess it is intentional. The one thing I can say that I did do right over the years is I was smart enough not to hire people that are too much like myself. God knows we don't need another one of me.
I know what you mean by that. I know exactly what you mean by that.
So I've hired people that are good at the things that I'm not good at.
Yeah,
So we all
yeah.
complement each other.
Yeah.
Different personality types and different strengths, whether it be organization or marketing or communications. And like, for example, Yvette, people, it's actually remarkable. It happened again yesterday, how often people go out of their way to tell me how wonderful she is, whether they've met her or even if they've just spoken to her on the phone. But so she's wonderful, but she puts me in my place.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's what you need.
Sometimes she's my boss.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is that service leadership philosophy in that model, right? Where, and I mean, I'm learning that. I mean, this podcast, for example, I mean, it'd be nothing without, Alex, definitely without Scott. And, I had this crazy idea to start this podcast. I went and bought stuff. got this space ready. These guys are going, what the hell is Belleville doing? And before you know it, here we are, right? But knowing full well that I can take this to a certain point, but then it's like, you got to hand it off to the smarter people then, or the people that have those skills,
So how do you check the ego at the door? Because I think if there's ego involved, this concept of culture that we're talking about doesn't exist.
Good question,
right?
Scott.
Like you got to be humble enough to let one of your staff call you out on your shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Also, humble enough to recognize that, you know what? Like, I'm not perfect in every way, shape, or form, and I can find others to fill the gaps, and it's okay. I'm okay if people realize and I got to imagine in the financial services world, there is no shortage of ego, right? Right? I can imagine. I mean, not that it's just unique to that business, because it's going to be everywhere. So, like, how do you check the ego and allow that trust in your team to make maybe decisions that are more in line with what their expertise is, that's not maybe perfect for where you're at, but you let it happen? Like, how does that work?
I think that's one of the first problems people have when they're building a business and they're in a management role, is most entrepreneurs tend to be control freaks.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody can do it better than I can.
Yeah.
And there's a fear of letting go. Right? But when I think back that, for Betty and for Kim and Yvette, and not as much Shari because she's in a role as an advisor, but at one point I had to do their job, and today I wouldn't have a clue how to do their job. So you have to let go. You can't. The analogy I heard once was using Frank Sinatra. Like, he does not sell concert tickets, and he doesn't clean up afterwards, and he doesn't move pianos.
Right.
He shows up and sings.
Yeah.
Right. So
I love that.
you gotta
I do
find
love
what
that.
you're good at.
Yeah.
Keep these analogies coming, because
Robert's got
because
a lot of them, and I love it.
I love the analogies, right? Because it just simplifies things in a way where you can digest it, and you're like, holy shit, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
totally. So keep them coming.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good.
Let's see what I can do.
No pressure.
The other thing too that I've witnessed and I've noticed is this kind of education first philosophy as well that you have with your clients. And don't quote me on this, Robert, but I think that you say to your clients, look, I'm going to show you what I'm doing with my own investments and or my own, I'll show you what I'm doing, and I'm not just telling you what I think you should do because it's best for me and my business. Is that something am I right on that? That's something you do?
I think actually it kind of ties in with a lot of things. Early on in the business, I encountered a number of financial advisors that said they didn't like dealing with teachers for some reason.
Okay.
And as I heard that more and more, eventually I started saying, well, what's your problem? Why don't you like dealing with teachers? And I said, because, we love dealing with teachers. They said, well, they ask too many questions.
They ask too many questions. I was just kidding.
That's exactly why I do like working with them, because I want people to understand what they're doing. Now, I guess there's different personality types, and, maybe some people would choose an advisor that takes more of a role where it's like, don't worry your pretty little head about the details. I'm the expert. Just do what I say.
Ego.
Which is not, exactly.
Example,
I like to educate people. I don't just say this is what I recommend. This is what I recommend because, and here's why. And we spend a lot of time around risk. Showing volatility. There's a big difference between a fund that's averaged 12% over the last 5 years. And if that's all you say, of course, that sounds wonderful. But, maybe it did 83% one year and minus 46 another year. And not everyone can handle that.
Right. There's a swing in things over that time that... sorry.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we do spend a lot of time educating people, and that's why we hold seminars and we mail out and email and try and keep them in the loop as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to a lot of people when you approach them with, I'm here so that you can leverage what I know for your best interest.
Nice.
So it's not about me telling you what to do. It's about me walking this journey with you and being there to give you the information you need at the right time to see you through to the end. So that education is huge.
Yeah. And again, that part of that is, like we were talking about before, is getting to know prospective client, what their goals are, making sure that they are a good fit for you guys as well, right? To understand a lot of these things that go into starting that relationship, I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, I think when clients realize that you actually do care and it's not just like a slogan. I love it when I get calls. Actually, yesterday I was talking to a client about financing a car. Do I pay cash? Do I lease? Which has nothing to do with our business, but we're glad to be involved in that and share our expertise. Same with real estate. It's not what I do from a business point of view, but I've done it personally, so I can comment on rental properties, how to evaluate them, the pros and the cons, and clients know that. Okay, I'm not getting paid for that. That's okay. Whatever's best for you ultimately is best for for us. But that's not really why we do it. It's just because we do actually care.
For sure.
Right, like if your dear friend asks you about it because you have some financial expertise, you're not looking for
better make an appointment.
Right. Right. Or even like a paycheck, right? Like you're going to offer your perspective, whether there's a financial end to it for you or not.
That's an interesting. That is interesting, right? Where you get into such a specialized industry or business. Myself in marketing, right? It's like everyone from my aunts and uncles to cousins to brothers, sisters, they all want to talk marketing all the time, right? Or get my opinion on certain things, or what does SEO mean, or whatever. And at some point, you're like, okay, am I giving this free advice, or where's that line? I imagine you guys might encounter that a lot, where you're in a personal setting, someone wants to talk about financial thing, and at some point you're like, well, this is valuable info I'm giving you. Do you want to become a client, or do we just keep talking about this on the side? I don't, and it's not really a question, it's just something that I just experience a lot as well. I imagine that might be a challenge for you guys in your industry.
Yeah, you can't get into like specifics, in the cocktail party environment, so to speak. So ultimately, I always have a million questions before I have any answers. So we've got to know. We ask a lot of questions. Sometimes we almost become financial marriage counselors. It gets that personal at times.
Right.
But at the cocktail party, it's very general conversation. Sure, we'll get into politics. We'll talk about the markets, but not specific investments.
So you talked about volatility earlier. I got a screenshot from a buddy yesterday telling me that Bitcoin was at its all-time high. So where does the whole crypto world fit within your business, if at all?
It can. There are cryptocurrency mutual funds now, but we don't use them. I like to stick to fundamentals, and there is no fundamental process of putting a value on a cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And it's new. It's just so new. There's
it's
no
still
track
so
record.
new,
The track record isn't there to know how it's going to react with certain market situations. And that's important to consider too.
Okay, one more, probably not the last analogy.
Yes, I knew. I was. Yes, there's more.
Scott, you unleashed
I also like simple concepts. Maybe it's like I can understand it. But there's what's called the Big Mac method of evaluating a currency. It's like what does a Big Mac cost in the States? What does it cost in Canada? If it costs $3 in the States and $4 in Canada, there's your exchange rate, 75 cents on the dollar. Right? Try and do that with any cryptocurrency. You can't.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. And I don't know much about crypto myself. But the fact, Shari, that you said, it's still fairly new. At what point is something not new in your world, or it's a service or a new product? Are there new products popping up a lot, or because I don't know, how does that work?
Well, I would go if you're looking new things like the environmental situation where they're looking for social environmental, pieces.
Yeah.
That's kind of a newer concept. It's been around for a while, but it's a newer concept. And when they're putting emphasis on that, what you're looking for is a track record.
Yeah.
So something new coming out, if it's being managed by somebody that has been around and managing other things, you can kind of take a bit of a piece of that. But when evaluating something brand new, it's unknown. And the unknown is what's scary in our market.
Yeah. Right.
But and just to kind of, again, we don't need to dig too deep down this rabbit hole. But I've just got some buddies who do invest in some crypto.
Yeah, I think we all know.
Not that it's a bad thing.
No,
Right.
no.
But when you're looking at setting up for retirement, are you willing to take risks there?
Well, the risk factor.
So if somebody's super excited, maybe you put a little piece of it in
Sure.
that you're...
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I guess, maybe the takeaway is that, it's probably not the ideal product for your long-term, like when you need that money to be there, when you're when you're on a fixed income all of a sudden, and you're not earning a paycheck, so to speak, the risk that dwindled away to next to zero because of some random, market shift is far too great for you guys to even consider. So I guess that's probably an easy thing to kind of consider, is like, you guys are more for the long-term plan in a lot of cases. Mine, there's probably some short-term stuff in there as well. But I think it's the folks that are, have a high risk tolerance, who maybe have some excess cash, who are chasing this big short term
people
gain.
Typically only have a high risk tolerance in good times. As soon as the market changes, suddenly the risk tolerance isn't as high as they thought it was. And again, cryptocurrency, there's no fundamental behind it. Like even the stock market, in the short term, it can be a popularity contest, right? So a stock is sexy, Nvidia, or back in the day when we, Nortel, the biggest blue chip company in this country. And then it went bankrupt. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Nvidia, but people jump on the bandwagon, and that can drive stocks to ridiculous valuations,
obnoxious values.
I imagine lots of trends maybe that people jump onto, and then, like you said, if it's not a tested, product or whatever that case is, then it's just maybe a trend that you want to be careful of.
And fund companies will jump on that too, because they want to attract market share. They want to deliver good results, but that's easier said than done. So they will create products that are sexy. Whether it be a crypto product or a perfect example is the number of technology funds that were launched in 1998, 1999, at the peak of the bubble. It's not because it was a smart move, but there was an appetite for it.
Right. So it goes back to what you guys said about earlier, which is, why maybe you left the corporate banking world originally, is because the bank was more interested in what was important for them, and not the clients necessarily, right? And I think having those sexy products, it's more to probably attract new business and just, rather than get into the difficult conversation and actually educating your client, which might take some time on maybe why these sexy products aren't ideal. They just sell them anyway, right? They just give me your money.
Available.
Let's just provide it. It's a SKU, right? That we can sell, and away you go.
Or various products that have certain guarantees to them that aren't explained. People will sacrifice huge opportunities just for that word guaranteed. And they don't even ask, well, what exactly is guaranteed?
Right.
Like if I say to you, you're investing $100,000, and I say, this is guaranteed. If I don't get into any more detail than that, what do you think that means?
Right.
Those teachers would be
Those
asking.
teachers might be. I was just thinking that.
Those teachers would be asking. It also reminded me of talking about good times and bad is something. I think it's Buffett says, like, when people are fearful, I'm greedy, and when they're greedy, I'm fearful.
Exactly. So we try and manage that comfort level and educate them that way. When markets decline, we send out, and I don't make any secret about it, we send out what we call a hand-holding letter, explaining what's going on in the market and why, and what to do and what not to do. And what to do is usually to take advantage of it, not to run from it, but to capitalize on it.
Just if you have a few extra pennies that you can dump back into your dollar cost average, so to speak.
Well, actually, speaking of that, having a few extra pennies, March of 2020, with COVID, we had a sharp decline in the market. Now, fortunately, it was a very quick recovery, but we sent out the hand-holding letter, I've been doing this long enough. I can read people's minds. So they're reading this letter and they're going, okay, yeah, Rob, this makes sense, but you've got all my money already. I don't have more money to invest. How do I capitalize on this? Say, well, we can adjust a portfolio. If you have fixed income products or even balanced funds that have bonds within it, that might be a time to shift more to equities or be more growth oriented, within your risk tolerance level and your objectives. But we can maybe you have a fund that's down a little bit, but buying into something that's down a lot has more upside potential. Right? And it was incredible how much of a reaction we got to that. People were calling, and on the flip side of that, aside from the ones who called to capitalize on it, we didn't get those panic calls.
Right.
And I think that's part of the education process you were referring to, Ryan.
Yep.
I was talking to a colleague not too long ago, and everything was ticking along smoothly for us, and he says to me, he goes, Rob, how are you handling it? Like, aren't you overwhelmed with phone calls from clients that are all worried about the markets? I'm going, no,
nope.
I haven't had one.
Well, because you got ahead of it,
Yeah.
in a way, it seems, right?
Well,
so,
and
yeah.
Part of the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're investing, you
Yeah.
got to recognize their ups and downs.
Yeah.
Because there's advisors out there who, when the market starts, doing its thing, going the wrong way, like they're hiding under the desk. Like
Yeah.
their phone's on do not disturb.
Yeah.
They're just they aren't prepared to have what could potentially be a difficult conversation.
But yet in every other business, what do? You advertise when there's a sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you guys aren't allowed to advertise.
No, yeah, sure you can. There's
maybe you got to
opportunity.
find some linguistics to
It's no different. You want to buy cars and groceries and
Yeah.
clothes when they're on sale. Why don't you want to invest when things are on sale?
That's a good point.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's the Buffett way,
Yeah.
right? That's literally
The whole perspective.
his thing is he's buying in those down times.
Yeah, I show clients an index chart of 70 years of the market, and there's ups and downs, and I'll point to all the downs, and I'll say, point out one of them that didn't recover.
Right.
Can't find them.
I can't find them. Some take longer than others, but they recover.
And are you retiring next year or 30 years from now?
Right.
Yeah.
And even
Good
then,
point.
are you retiring and dying next year, or are you going to be retired for hopefully 30 years?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true too. Yeah. The I more of like maybe a personal question, but I'm just curious about this. So, you onboard a client, they're with you for a long time. I imagine their goals, their financial goals, will change throughout this relationship you have, especially these long-term client relationships. I mean, myself, like 4 kids, my son's wearing $300 Jordans. I'm wearing an Old Navy, golf shirt. Shout out to Old Navy. We're looking for sponsors, by the way. But I like in the past, I was buying nice clothes for myself. It was important to me. Now I could care less. Like my money is going somewhere else. I have different goals than maybe I did 10 years ago, that sort of thing. Is that something that you're constantly having a conversation with your clients on? Like, what are their goals? Are their goals changing, throughout different stages of life, age, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're constantly changing for sure.
Yeah.
But part of our job is to help them prioritize.
Right.
Another saying, most people sacrifice what they want most for what they want now. So you're telling me you want to retire at age 55, but that big screen TV looks good, that flashy car looks good. I deserve another vacation.
Yeah.
Right, so we try to help them clarify, and hey, if you can accomplish all of it, more power to you. But we'll help you to say what's doable and what are your priorities.
Delayed gratification.
And regular reviewing, because you might not know your situation's going to change.
Right.
Health or
Yep.
marriage
All kinds
or
of things.
the kids that weren't expected or
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Yeah,
so
I
constantly
would-
reviewing, and you pivot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
before we wrap today, based on what you guys do and what you've learned over the years and how you're helping your existing clients, is there anything that you could share for any listeners out there who are like a novice, who maybe don't have an advisor, maybe they are with their corporate, their institution, maybe they're not, maybe they're just saving in the bank and they're not earning any interest on their money. And you got any like low hanging fruit of advice, guidance for those listeners who are like, I knew I should probably be doing something, I'm just not even sure where or what.
Almost
or
like where
how.
to start.
Yeah,
Where do I even
I
start?
start? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on
Seek advice. Whether it's us or someone else, but talk to someone. And I think most advisors don't charge a fee. You can walk into the office and have a conversation with them, and you can decide for yourself whether there's going to be a second conversation. Feel them out and see where it goes from there, because they'll help hopefully to prioritize your goals with you, give you some tips, whether it's the little things or the big things. It doesn't cost you anything. And, sometimes it can make a huge difference. Banks will hold on to your money.
They're happy to do so.
They're actually, it's incredible. And sometimes a client will say, "Oh, but they're so nice to me." It's like, "Oh,
They better be nice.
do you normally pay to have friends?" There's a lot of things that in this era of we deal with so many compliance issues. Of course, full disclosure, avoiding conflicts of interest, and yet there's so many things happening today that are huge conflicts of interest. Why is it that if you have $60,000 in your checking account and owe $12,000 on your Visa at 19.99% interest, now you might be smart enough not to be in that position, but many people are, and the teller sees that, they'll never say, "Well, why don't we pay off your Visa right now?"
Right.
They're specifically told not to.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, because they're partnered with Visa, and that's Visa's bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because anytime you pay off that, it seems like anytime you pay that credit card bill, it's like, oh, there's a credit increase available for you. Would you like that credit increase?
That.
Right,
Quite
and that's a business model, which is sad to think about, right?
Yeah.
And I've been there.
definitely is.
I've been there. I've taken those increases at times.
Well,
for
because
sure.
you're busy, you're just okay. Fine, I'll just go with it, and and even on the bank. Not to knock banks all over the place here, but I don't know. I'm getting emails from my bank all the time from various people. They want to meet with me for something or other. This person retired. Now there's a new person in. I'm like they don't know me. They don't really understand my goals, my needs, that I have kids and all this stuff, right? So definitely the value, right, of having that personal relationship with your advisor, with your with you guys and your clients as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's great
speaks volumes.
I mean, I know some folks who work for banks. They're great. They're great people, and they manage a book and they take care of their clients. And so, we don't want to paint this gloomy brush across the board. I think it comes down to honestly individuals, because hopefully there are some tellers out there that go, "Hey, come on, look at this."
They're
right?
doing a good job.
But generally speaking, if we paint the broad stroke,
But there's the continuity as well. You don't want to deal with someone today and find out there's someone else taking over that desk tomorrow.
Yeah.
That first client that I mentioned, that first large client that I mentioned many years ago, they confided in me afterwards. They said that one of the factors that went into their decision was that I was so much younger than them that they wouldn't need another financial advisor for the rest of their life.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, because maybe they had a dozen throughout the years, for example, right?
And they have both passed away, but I was the financial advisor for the rest of their life.
Interesting.
But many of their families are. We have, I don't know how many 3-generation families, and one 4-generation family.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and I'm old enough now that we opened up an RESP when someone had a baby, and now they've completed their university. And the money was there; they didn't have to worry about how are we going to pay for this.
Yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, that's good. I know you guys are busy. We got to let you go. Really appreciate you coming on. Before we leave, though, Shari, I want to. Networking. And I know that you've started or you've been a part of starting a network organization or chapter, I think, here in London with BNI, is it?
Yep.
I really wanted to ask you and talk to you about that experience and just what is that like? I mean, I've been gone to a lot of networking events and that sort of thing. I've never started a networking chapter. So congratulations on doing that. But then also, what was that? What's that like? That must be like almost like starting a new business, I would imagine.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't solely on me. Let me just make that clear. But
you had a
part
team,
of a team of people that were just looking to have a group that we could refer amongst ourselves.
Nice.
But it's really challenging because networking is just a huge part of any business. Yep. And I think a lot of times people take for granted what that means. And what I've grown to believe that it means is building relationships so that you can make a confident referral to somebody. And having a room full of people in various industries when the need arises, that eliminates that vetting 3 people, getting 3 quotes, whatnot. And so it's hard to find people that understand that and the commitment that it takes. Like, we meet weekly and we meet with each other outside of that meeting weekly.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's building a lot of relationships with these other businesses and getting to know and understand them so that we can confidently refer around. So,
you know,
tough.
I think that's amazing, by the way. And I think that, you know, for any new business owners or entrepreneurs or those looking to get into business, I would suggest that find a few networks quickly, because it's very lonely. It's very siloed as a business owner, especially just starting a business. And like you said, you can lean on other people that have maybe had more experience, but also that you can just kind of bounce ideas off of. You know, I've in my career, I've really undervalued networking, and you know, in my corporate career, it's like, oh great, I got to go to this networking event and that, but like there was huge value there. I was just too young and naive to really understand it, as opposed to now, you know, really like intentionally finding these networking groups where I can really have those mindful and thoughtful conversations about business, right? And I think that seems to be the philosophy you guys have created with it's BNI Cornerstone.
Cornerstone is our chapter name.
Is your chapter? Yeah.
BNI is Business Networking International. So it's an international organization. So
nice.
If you've got if you can service people internationally, it's also an additional bonus.
Oh, there you go.
But the nicest thing I think about this, especially for, like you said, somebody starting a business or maybe relocating. I've had 2 people join our chapter that have relocated, one from Manitoba, one from Saskatchewan. And it was the first thing they sought out, because they don't have friend groups. They don't have their kids' parents, friends. They don't have other networks that they can draw on and just get to know people. And, you know, we've got everything from what I do to cleaning services, of course, realtors and insurance and photographer. Like, it's everything. It's not just this industry. So when I have a client that I'm sitting with and they're talking about, well, we're thinking about having a vacation, we're just not really sure which way to go. Have you talked to a travel agent? I know a great travel agent. She's the travel agent I use. I'm happy to refer you. Yeah. And so as we're all looking for those opportunities to send a referral, they got to land somewhere. So they all come right back around. Yeah. So it's a nice way to generate business. It's a warm lead because you're being introduced. It's not a cold call. It's not a door knock. It's my friend says you're the person to talk to. Let's talk.
So good.
So you talked about not having to, you know, vet these 3 different vendors now, because it's kind of from this trusted kind of, you know, referral. How much vetting goes on for bringing members into the network? Because we've talked about this a couple of times on the show, which is the gimme, me.
Yeah.
And because we probably all experienced it at one point or another, this nightmarish networking scenario where it's just like, you know, here you're dishing out your cards and you're like, you know anybody? You know, it's like, it's exhausting. It doesn't feel great. Right? So it sounds like, from what you guys are doing, it's more so getting to know the people in the group, building some trust within the group, and then just when there is an opportunity, it's presented. So you're not like forced, like you got to come with 3 leads. Like you're not forced in that fashion.
There's an expectation, but I mean, obviously I'm not going to give you a lead if I haven't gotten to know you. So I know I need to paint my house. If I didn't have this group, then I would call 3 painters. I'd have them all give me a quote, whatnot. But now I've got someone who's a painter that is looking to join our group. So they come in, they check us out. We check them out. If they want to join, we do reference checks. We do social media checks. We do like they have a whole application form that they fill out.
That's great.
So and there's one seat. So there's only one painter in the group.
So you got to
so
be a reasonable human.
Yeah.
In
That's
order to
important too.
slide in.
And we have declined applications
good.
because it wasn't a good fit. We didn't feel that we could confidently refer. And we've had people come and go. They've built their business so they don't need additional referrals. They're swamped with what they're doing. So their
Peel
seat
out.
opens up and
Find someone new.
So it's
Pretty cool. I love that.
But it
That's
is
great.
And sometimes it takes, like, as we launched, not a lot of referrals are being passed in that first year. We're making an effort. We're trying, but it takes the time to get to know each other. And I happen to have a realtor in my back pocket. It might take me some time before I have enough meetings with the realtor in my group to say, no, you know what, this is the guy that I'd recommend hands down. I will use him for myself. And I'm staking my reputation on it as well.
Yeah.
So it's intense. It does take time. It's not just a show up when you can. Everybody's expected to participate, and it comes back. So our philosophy is literally givers gain. So we don't come into this going, ooh, think of all the referrals I'm going to get. It's, I'm going in, how can I support everybody else in this chapter? Every week we're looking at a way. Somebody will say, hey, this week I'm looking for, let's say, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The travel agent says, I do corporate travel. So if you know a company that has a corporate policy, they either want to revamp their policy or they want to know a company that needs help with that, then I kind of think, oh, who do I know?
Yeah,
What do I know?
right,
You know? And
right.
so everybody has a specific ask each week. So they're constantly educating each other as to what they do and how we can find them within our network.
It's powerful.
So it makes it a little bit easier, you
Yeah.
know, because I don't know their businesses.
Yeah.
So they give me an ask. I go through my week with that ask in my head. If I can fill it, I bring it. If I
Very
can't.
cool.
Some
good.
weeks I may have 3 referrals to give. Some weeks I might not have any.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you know, it balances out.
Yeah. No, that's I really wanted to touch on that with you
Yeah.
because I know that's something you've built with your team. You know, and it's brought a lot of value to our city and to that area as well.
Thanks for that.
We're getting short on time, but I did want to kind of bring this back around with Lewkowitz Financial. So you guys are in Woodfield, beautiful little Woodfield community. And the one thing I did want to kind of touch on is that you're very accessible. Like you're not a company that's on the 25th floor of a building where people need to park and pay for parking, go through an elevator, try and find you. It takes them 2 hours to get to you. You're very accessible. You're very you have a beautiful office, like a heritage or an older home.
It is a heritage property.
It is a heritage property.
About 135 years old.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, it's beautiful. But you literally walk into the front door, you're greeted by Yvette, or even one of you is there, and it's just right away you feel at home. I imagine that's something intentional that you wanted to build with the company, and I assume so. I shouldn't assume, but I imagine.
Yeah, no,
So,
it feels more like you're in someone's home having a conversation. Sure, I have a desk, but but our industry is really bad for creating this stigma that, you have to have millions of dollars to be a client.
right.
You walk down a marble hallway with gumwood walls and you're intimidated.
Yeah, that's where all my money's going, the marble, the beautiful building.
Yeah. So no, it's we were probably the first among financial advisors to buy one of the older homes downtown. Lawyers and accountants did that before us.
Huh.
But I think it also reflects a sense of permanence. We're not leasing the office space that we're going to be gone in 2 years.
Right.
Like I said, we bought the building 31 or 32 years ago.
Wow.
It's worked out really well. So it's parking at the door. You don't have to take an elevator or validate your parking ticket.
Well, I appreciate that when we have our marketing meetings. So, but I mean, it does kind of come full circle that we talked about the coldest night of the year, where literally you guys are a warming station. As part of the route where hundreds of people come by. You're right outside your office. You guys are all standing there. I know I've been part of that in the 1 year, and it's just really refreshing to see, right, that community connection that that really you guys really hold dear to your culture. So well done.
What I love, because having been retail bank, having been the institutional advising situation, and then coming to Lewkowitz, I'm the youngest one in the office, I guess, in tenure, anyways, and
age,
and age, just seeing the differences, like it is literally like stepping into a family. And as we were going through the onboarding process, I looked at the 4 people that were in the office, and I went, I can see a little piece of me in Robert.
Right.
I can see a little piece of me in Kim. I can see a little piece of me in Betty. And I can see a little piece of me in Yvette.
Yeah.
And it's really like a family, and everybody pulls together, and just we all love being there.
Yeah.
It's great. Like I leave home in the morning and I go home to work. And then I go home again in the evening. So
that's so great.
Yeah. And I think that comes through just in the way that we work with people as well.
Absolutely.
On business relationships as well as individual relationships.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've experienced it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand as you interact with your clients. And so great job on that for sure. And
we'll make sure folks can find you if they'd like to chat. I imagine there's some value to be had by at least having a conversation, and we appreciate you guys taking the time, and we're grateful to have you, and this was great. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
This was great. Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, everyone be well, and continued success.
That's a wrap.
You as well.
That's a wrap. Another great episode. Thanks for joining us. Please support our podcast. By supporting us, you can go to YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, go to our website, hustleandgrindpod.com. That way you can go and you can apply to be a guest. Listen to us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the channels. But we really appreciate your support. Keep listening. We have a lot of great episodes and a lot of great guests ready to go. We're going to keep coming hard at you here and digging into the hustle and grind of what it takes to be an entrepreneur and a business owner.